Welcome to another special live edition of Marketplace Masters, brought to you by Merchant Spring, the leading marketplace analytics platform for agencies and investors. Marketplace Masters is all about going deeper into the challenges e-commerce sellers face to broaden understanding and provide practical actions to implement. I'm your host, Paul Sonneveld, and today I'm joined by Stefano Puru from Ecom Partner. In today's episode, we are discussing how US Amazon sellers or US agencies should think about expanding to Europe. Stefano is an entrepreneur and executive with a wealth of experience in e-commerce and Amazon Marketplace. He started his Amazon journey as a seller and launched Ecom Partner in 2018. Ecom Partner is an Amazon accelerator for brands that want to scale in Europe. They have helped over 100 brands grow their revenues up to $20 million a year and successfully launched thousands of new products on Amazon Europe. Thank you for being on the show, Stefano.
You today.
Thank you. Sorry, I let you in a little bit late, so we just missed you. But it's great to have you on the show. Really appreciate that. Now, today we're talking about Amazon Europe, and I want to talk about a specific flavor because we have a lot of particularly Amazon agencies and aggregators that like to listen to our podcast. So I want to talk today about Amazon Europe, but really from the perspective of hey, I'm an agency, I'm already managing some great and successful brands in the US, or maybe in Japan or other parts of the world. My clients are talking to me about Amazon Europe. They're asking me, what's next? Shall we go there? So, I really want to set the scene around that particular conversation. So I thought maybe a great way to start off here is really to talk about Amazon Europe itself. Why consider Amazon Europe? If I'm the US, Japan is a pretty big market. India is a pretty big market. Why should Amazon Europe be on the top of the list?
Sure. Great question, Paul. Well, they say a picture is worth more than 1,000 words, and I'll prepare some slides that maybe we can share to the audience. And here is the answer to your question, Paul. Europe is not the biggest continent in the world, but there are many countries. On the left, you can see the countries where Amazon has a marketplace. We have the 5 big marketplaces in Europe, that is Germany, UK, Italy, France, and Spain, and the 4 smaller ones, Netherlands, Poland, Sweden, and Turkey. On the right, we can see the 20 countries in Europe where the Amazon app is in the 20 most downloaded, in the list of the 20 most downloaded app. That means that people from all these countries on the right buy from the marketplaces on the left. So you have to add the people that live in those 9 countries plus those that live in those smallest countries. And that's right there, Paul gives you the answer. Europe is on par with the US, combining all the countries in terms of volume, in terms of views that it gets. And from my experience, also revenues generally are on par with the US.
Thank you. Now, Europe, I consider Europe to be quite an established market. What is e-commerce growth doing there? Is it, what does growth, particularly the Amazon ecosystem, look like?
So Amazon is growing around 25% year after year in Europe. Of course, the pandemic accelerated that. I read some statistics, and now seems like the growth is slowing down in Europe as well, like in the States. But e-commerce in general is booming. 80% of people shop online. So it's really like a big chunk of the market.
Yeah.
We have to consider that Amazon is investing in the future. That means that they're building warehouses all over the place, in Poland, in Austria, in Switzerland. That means they're building warehouses in smaller countries and with the intention to potentially open new marketplaces. Of course, most of the revenues come from the big 5, but long term, it's definitely a big investment that Amazon is making. And brands, of course, not only benefiting now, but are also making an investment, as I said.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, we've seen rapid expansion of the Amazon ecosystem in Europe as well. I mean, I was going to say half that map, but that's maybe a little bit too much. But certainly, quite a number of countries there that weren't part of Amazon even just a few years ago, right? Sweden,
Sure, sure,
Poland,
sure.
Netherlands, and the like.
And I
So,
wanted to show in the next slide that I have, I don't want to bore the listeners with too many slides, but there is an interesting graphic about impressions that the different marketplaces get, right? Because we want to keep this webinar very practical. So in the next slide, we can have a look. These two graphs compare the monthly visits per Amazon seller on average for each marketplace to the total visit in October 2021. So the graph on the left, you can get an understanding of proportionally how many visits each seller gets. And of course, we have Japan in the second spot. But if you combine all the European marketplaces, it's not that clear here, but I've summed those lines, and it comes out that combining all the European marketplaces, that line is much longer than the US that is in the first position. That means that the market is not saturated yet, because this graph gives you the idea of market saturation in terms of seller. That's another point to consider when starting selling in Europe. And on the right, you get total visit. Of course, US get most of the visit, but still, if we sum the European marketplaces, we get very close to that line.
yeah, fantastic. All right, so you've convinced me of the opportunity, right? So let's do it. I want to bring my Amazon brand to Europe. But before I start shipping containers of products into Rotterdam or any other European port, what do I have to think about from a preparation point of view? What are some of the things I have to get organized and get ready before I even can sell any product?
Well, there are three things. First of all, logistic. Then we have tax and compliance. And then we have catalog selection. So in terms of logistic, first point is to decide whether we want to use Amazon FBA or we want to merchant fulfilled, and where we want to stock our products. Usually we suggest to stock in Germany just because it's in the middle of Europe and it's very easy from Germany to distance sell all over Europe. And this point is connected with the second, that is tax compliance and VAT registration, because the law now says that you can store in one country in Europe, register just for one VAT number in Europe, and from that country, ship and sell all over Europe, right? And that comes very handy for brands that just want to test the waters and see how their products perform. So to sum up, decide where you want to store. As I said, usually we suggest Germany or France just because they are very well positioned in the middle, in the center of Europe, Western Europe in this case. And then potentially get a 3PL in case you want a merchant fulfilled, but also to avoid any issue with long storage fees on Amazon, and also to deal with reverse logistic with returns, pretty much. And the third point, Paul, is catalog selection. As I said, we suggest to start with the best sellers, just because it doesn't make sense if you have 1,000 SKUs to translate all those listings. It makes more sense to pick the best sellers, see how they perform, and then try and test the others in batches, right? And that trial and error, it works the best, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I want to just prod on a few things, and I know we'll expand on these a little bit more. But just first, quickly, in terms of VAT, you have the option to register in different countries. My understanding, there's different levels of paperwork involved and different lead times with different countries.
Yeah.
I certainly recall, I think about a year ago, the queue to to register for VAT in the UK started to get really lengthy. Which country, when your non-European customers come to you about and you helping them with expansion in Europe, which countries is at the top of your list and say go and register for VAT over there, because that's the simplest, fastest one?
Well, as I was commenting before, since VAT registration is linked to where you store your products, so you should pick first the country where you want to store, and then consequently register in that country for VAT. Because now in Europe there's a new legislation called the One-Stop Shop (OSS) that allows e-commerce seller to pay VAT only in the country where they store the goods. That means that if you guys are storing in Germany, you will have to declare all your VAT, even of the products you sold in France or in Italy, to Germany. Before, there used to be a threshold over which you had to register for VAT in that country. But right now, European Union has simplified that, and that comes very handy in case you want to use the European fulfillment network. That is the network of warehouses Amazon has and distance sell. Of course, another option is to use Pan EU. Pan EU allows Amazon to store in each and every country where they have a marketplace. That will trigger VAT registration in almost nine countries pretty much, because Amazon has warehouses in Poland, in Sweden, and now they're opening up in Portugal. So if you go for the Pan EU, of course you pay less in fulfillment fees because your products are closer to the buyer. Let's say somebody buys from Spain. If you are stored in Germany, then of course you will pay more shipping from Germany to Spain than if you stored in Spain and ship those products to the customer in Spain. So to sum up, if you do Pan EU, you will pay less in fulfillment fees, but you will pay more in compliance, in VAT registration, and in fixed cost, in compliance costs.
You're very good at reading my mind, because my next question was going to be, well, explain a little more deeply the difference between EFN and Pan European, which you've done fantastically. Right now, what do you see out there? What's the most popular option amongst, particularly I'm talking about established sellers. I already have my, 6, 7, 8-figure brand in the US. I've got volume over there. What's the most popular option for really sorting out logistics and fulfillment in Europe?
It seems like big brands are choosing Germany, Paul, as a first country where to store their inventory. And of course, since March, Amazon will distance sell to the UK as well. That comes very handy because because of Brexit, you couldn't do that. But now you can distance sell to the UK as well, and that is useful, especially because most of the sellers coming to Europe are selling in the US, so the listing are already translated in English, and it makes sense to sell in the UK as well. But of course, it doesn't make sense to store in the UK because then you have to cross the channel, right, the sea, to ship to Europe. And another thing to remember is that you will need an EORI number, your import duty number, to import to the European Union. So apart from VAT registration, you will need this EORI number, but it's not a big deal. You can get that pretty quickly. And also in terms of VAT, they're speeding up the process, so it doesn't take too long. And to answer your question, definitely first get EORI, VAT, and then go for Germany. That's what big brands seems to be doing. And of course, the bigger they are, the more they're inclined to use the Pan EU. But still, even for big brands, it's a big step, right? Because there are a lot of logistic issues involved. One thing big brands do is get a 3PL. So they never ship directly from the supplier, let's say in China or in India, to Amazon, the Amazon warehouse, but they always send the unit first to a 3PL, either in Germany. Central Europe is popular. Slovakia is very well positioned and it's much cheaper than Germany. I've seen prices even 50% cheaper in some warehouses in Slovakia. Slovakia, for those that don't know, is a little country close to Czech Republic and south of Germany, pretty much.
That's a great little tip or nugget there in terms of how can you, particularly in an area where all supply chain costs seem to be going through the roof. Accessing lower 3PL cost in someone like Slovakia, right next to Germany, and Austria there. very, very handy. So really interesting. So we've covered market size, we've covered logistics. What's next, right? So let's say I've got 50 top performing ASINs in the US across 2 or 3 brands, right? I bring that to you, Stefano. How do you think about, which products I should start with in Europe, and also which countries? Which countries should I launch in first, or should I launch in all? So catalog selection and country strategy. What are your
Sure.
thoughts?
Well, catalog selection again, Paul. I would say, of course, store in one country but launch all over Europe, because sometimes we are surprised at the level of sales we had in Italy, for example, much higher than in Germany, and we weren't expecting that. So, of course, we can do a research, keyword research, competition research, see how much that particular keyword for that particular product has been searched for. But sometimes you won't believe, as I said, the volume of sales that some products get in smaller countries. So I would say, yeah, try in all European countries. It doesn't cost, and if, of course, I mean, you have to translate the listings. That's important to do. Amazon will provide the customer service, but you will still have to answer specific questions from clients. So you have to take care of that as well. If you want to go for the automatic translations, I don't particularly suggest that. So I always suggest to have a professional taking care of the translations. One tip I can give, Paul, is you don't have to have everything figured out from the start. That means you don't need to have A+ content from the start. You don't need to have the coolest store from the start. I would just say launch as soon as possible, get data, PPC data, and then you will improve from there.
Can I just prompt you a little bit more on the translation?
Yes.
And by the way, I love that comment to say you don't have to get everything right. I'm sure a lot of people just, there's a bit of a sigh of relief because the bar when it comes to Amazon is high, right? But what you're saying is you don't have to get it right in every single country as well. But playing devil's advocate, if you are picking 1 or 2 countries, so let's say we're launching in all the European countries, great, and Amazon Fulfillment Network makes that easy. But if there's a country where I really want to focus on, like I'm really going to invest heavily in translation. So let's say I'm not going to translate into Dutch just yet. Maybe I'm just going to use a bit of auto translation, but I don't have the budget to pay for 12 translators, but I can pay for 2 or 3. Which country should I, put at the top of the list? And I'm sure it
Germany,
depends a
for
little bit
sure.
on category.
Yeah.
And one follow-up question as well. And also I'm thinking about keyword optimization.
Hmm.
Where should I invest the deepest in terms of keyword optimization? Whether it's, keyword in terms of Amazon PPC campaigns or SEO content. So talk to me a little bit about that local language factor.
Yeah, indeed. Germany, to answer your first question, Germany, 100%. France, and then I would say pick one between Spain and Italy if you want to just launch in 3, and UK, because you already have the content in English. Even though recently Italy has been performing better for most of our clients than France and Spain, but still, those are the countries that I would suggest first. And consider that customers from neighborhood countries will buy the products. So Polish, of course, now there's Amazon Poland, but Austrians will buy from Germany. That's why Germany is the no-brainer country, in the sense that there's almost 100 million people that will shop there. Second question about keywords, I would say both. I mean, of course, optimizing for SEO at the start, it's important. But then once you run PPC campaigns, you start getting data, you start really understanding which keywords people are searching for to find your product, and then you can tweak and you can modify your listings. Of course, in terms of translation, the listings need to be localized, in the sense that people think differently. German is different from a Spanish. Germans wants to read more about features, while Spanish maybe more about benefits, right? So even the language is different, and that really makes a difference in conversion rate. In terms of content, now Amazon actually allows you to put text in the picture in the different languages, so I would suggest to do so. Little thing that add up at the end of the day. 1 point of conversion rate here, another point there, everything adds up. Even though at the beginning I would just keep the content as it is, never mind translating the text in the pictures, but make sure that translations, like the bullet points, the title especially, and the description are really optimized. And if you see that the listing is not converting well, then consider adding A+ content and the store and the text in the pictures, specifically for those products that have a higher price point. So the highest price point you have, the more your content has to be perfect.
Yeah, spot on. Let me, just another topic. I'm just, we've got a question coming in here about brand registry. We haven't really spoken about this, particularly from we've got a question here from LinkedIn, from Michelle. If you're brand registered on Amazon.com, do you still need to go through the same process in Europe? How does the brand registry link together, and how to make sure I can own my brand in Amazon Europe as well?
I mean, Amazon recognizes the trademark from the States. They recognize in Europe, but you still have to open a new case in Seller Central. Recently, a client had an issue because everything was correct and is brand registered in the US, but he had to submit documents again to EU brand registry. So, I mean, as we know, Amazon sometimes make things complicated for a reason that we don't know. But yes, it's sometimes it's tricky. But at least once you get brand registered, you get a lot of advantages to the competitors, and you get extra tools.
Yeah.
And
is brand registry, sorry to cut you off, but is brand registry at the European level, or is it country specific? Is it do it once or do it 12 times?
No, Europe, at least once you do it, it's done for all Europe. It's just because Europe has one unified Seller Central account. So once you submit for one country, then you're good. Again, I've seen issues where they didn't update properly in one country. Like one country you could create the store, in another you couldn't. But that just takes you to open a case with brand registry and say, hey, we have submitted the documents, please let us open the store in Germany.
Yeah, sure. They're like anomalies. Yeah. Okay, so we've got the opportunity, we have the setup with the logistics, we've got the catalog, we've got translations, everything is done. We are ready to drive sales, right? In theory, anyway. And I'm sure many sellers are not successful in Europe. They're successful elsewhere. They have high hopes. They come to Europe and they're not successful. So let's talk about scaling, right? Your products are in Amazon. Your listings are up. They're active. As a US brand, you just come to Europe. How do you scale? How do I drive ranking? Of course, these are the golden nuggets that we're all looking for, right? What do you do with your clients?
Well, Paul, at the end of the day, we still see PPC as being the key. Amazon is pay-per-play. Actually, I have a slide where I sum up all the points that allow sellers. That slide's over there, yeah. So successful launch, of course, we are talking about product launch. So EBC, A+ content, keyword research, listing quality, they all add up. Ad campaign setup, PPC optimization, product quality as well. So that means reviews. But of course, to scale, you have to get great reviews. That's the first hurdle. Sometimes it's very hard to scale if your reviews are below 3.5, let's say. So make sure your product is there, the reviews are there, and of course it helps that Amazon allows you to showcase your reviews from other countries to Europe. So that's an advantage that you have. If you sell in the US, you can already use those reviews in Europe. And then to scale, you really have to fine tune what you're doing. First of all, making sure you don't run out of stock. Like take care of the basics first, because the Amazon algorithm also consider stock level. So I've seen clients actually didn't know that, and they were sending maybe 50 units every week to the inventory from the 3PL, and then they wonder why they weren't showing up as they wish they would have on their campaigns. So everything adds up, inventory level as well. But then, of course, to properly scale, you have to have the best PPC strategy in place. That means that you have to add a lot of history behind, and you're already going for exact matches, and you're using all the ad types, you're using videos, you're using all the spectrums or powerful PPC weapons that Amazon allows, it also depends on what kind of products you're selling. As I said before, the higher the price point, the more important is your listing. And also, I would add that in Europe, it's not that important to drive external traffic like in the US. The US people use ManyChat, Facebook, funnels, all sort of strategies, just because PPC's bids on PPC are so high. So Europe, PPC cost is lower, and that's an advantage. So definitely go strong with PPC.
Some great. I've been asked this question in the past, and let me see what answer you give. Is if I'm a brand, how much budget should I set aside for PPC in year one to have a good go at launching in Europe? What's a good number, or do you have a rule of thumb for thinking about the question, because the answer may be different for different sellers?
Well, look, I got asked this question like 3 hours ago by a prospect, a potential client, and my answer was, we have to calculate your break-even cost when you launch, your profit margins, understand your profit margin, understand that at the beginning it's a matter of breaking even, just to be able to rank your investing. And then, of course, once you're ranking well, we will scale it from there. But to be honest, Paul, I've seen launches where actually they've been profitable from day one. It's just a matter of
Amazing.
selecting the best ad types. Sometimes maybe just a matter of running those sponsor brands, display or product targeting your competitor. Like you can do so many stuff with PPC. Don't go for auto campaigns. Like, okay, sometimes you need to do auto campaigns. But yeah, there are so many creative ways you can use that. And promotions, not that much, to be honest. Like, I'm not a big fan of promotions on Amazon. Some lightning deals, maybe they can help you rank higher. So yeah, to sum up, for your budget, consider that the earlier you are in the product life cycle, the more you have to invest. And of course, the goal is to get in those top positions, because we know that 85% of the sales come from the first 6 or 7 slots on the search results.
Yeah. Makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. We're almost out of time. I've got 2 questions left, so I'm going to try and squeeze them in. But let's see if we can keep our answers punchy. The first one is, what are the top 3 mistakes you have seen international sellers make as they enter Europe, thinking they're going to drive success? They failed. What are the 2 or 3 big mistakes that you've seen them make? Common mistakes.
Well, one is not calculating VAT costs, because VAT is higher than sales tax in the US. So please put that in your cost to see if your profit margins are actually still there, especially for lower price point products. So that's one. Second, not having the supply chain properly taken care of. So please have a 3PL and have a backup 3PL. That's very important. And make sure you don't just have 50 units there. So I would say, yeah, logistics, super important. Third mistake, maybe with content, not investing enough in proper content.
Okay. Very Yeah, you've got to build a good foundation to sell, right? Just like
Indeed.
having inventory in the warehouse. Actually, we just had a question come in. I'm going to try and squeeze it in. It's from Jamie, and she's talking about actually FBM. So we've talking about FBA, but she's asking about FBM. You know, if a brand chooses to ship FBM, what kind of lead time do you recommend to maintain a healthy metrics? Now, for me, there's another question here: is when you think about Amazon Europe, is FBM worth doing? And if you must do it, you know, what are the, I guess, what's the shipping policy you should configure, what's
Yeah.
expected, and the like.
Well,
So
look,
probably
I know.
two questions in there.
Sure. Well, to answer her question, I know some warehouses that offer FBM Prime. That means that you're able to use FBM and still have the Prime badge. That's point number one, because the Prime badge gives you juice, ranking juice,
Yeah,
so you don't want to
yeah,
lose that. So my first suggestion is, if you want to do FBM, make sure you have a warehouse. You're working with a warehouse that can do Prime merchant fulfilled. Otherwise, I won't do FBM. Um, Second, of course, I mean, you have to follow. Amazon is always changing their lead time recommendation. So yeah, make sure to comply with what Amazon is requiring in terms of lead time, right? Otherwise, you will have customers complaining, because customers actually expect their products the next day, in 2 days. So
yeah,
another issue with that is that you will get bad reviews. Sometimes people leave bad reviews, not mentioning that is because the product came late. Because of course, if they do that, they remove the review. Sometimes just emotionally they write bad review because they got the product late. So that's a very important point.
yeah. Last question from me for today. I want to talk about Prime Day. Prime Day 2022 is coming up. I think we know the dates yet, but of course, everyone's guess is mid to late June, somewhere
Yes.
around that. Um, Now, for people thinking about expanding to Europe, it's probably,
Yes.
they won't miss they'll miss this opportunity. But clearly, Prime Day is a big deal, and I just want to get a sense of the kind of EU flavor to Prime Day, and specifically, you run an agency, you have many clients you are serving. No doubt, you are starting to think about Prime Day, preparing for it. What are you doing, like right now, this week, next week, and the week after, to get ready? What's on your top of your checklist in terms of getting Prime ready?
I'm gonna surprise you, Paul. Actually, some clients are not big fan of Prime Day, and they actually don't want to do anything for Prime Day because they feel like, okay, why do I have to give my price at a my products at a big discount? Um, for what? I'm already ranking high. Okay, I sell more, but what is gonna happen? I'm already number 2, number 1, so I don't want to do it. So more and more, I hear that.
Okay, that's really interesting. Like, why be busy
Yeah,
fool, right? Why ship thousands of products at zero margin? That just to keep
exactly,
everyone busy, right? Yeah, makes sense.
exactly.
Makes sense.
And for those that want to do it, of course, we have to understand first if it makes sense with the profit margins, and make sure you're on stock, not just for Prime Day, but after. Like, make sure that you don't do Prime Day and then you run out of stock the next month. And especially now with this logistic nightmare, that probably we have logistic nightmare number 2, right? From China. So
Mm,
yeah, it's less and less unpopular. Seems like Prime Day is not like it used to be.
yeah, yeah, I understand. Very interesting. The Prime Day is losing its appeal. I mean, it completely makes sense, right? There's so many things to think about, and it can be a massive disruptor to your business and to your broader supply chain also. So,
Indeed.
interesting perspective. Really interesting. Appreciate it. Well, we are out of time, so I'm going to wrap it up here. First of all, Stefano, I just want to thank you for coming on the show today. I really appreciate the expertise you brought to the table. Clearly, bringing your brand from the US or other markets into Europe is not straightforward. Requires very careful consideration, and you've been fantastic in just helping us demystify this topic a little bit more and providing many practical tips along the way. I'm sure there's a number of viewers out here who are thinking about this topic, and they might be interested in in exploring your services, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, first of all, thank you again, Paul, for inviting me, and it has been a pleasure. Best way to reach out to me is either by email. I guess we can put them in the show notes. We can put my email in the show notes, or just go over in our website and schedule a free consultation with me. Yeah, either 15 minutes or 30 minutes. We can have a chat and see if we can help you guys launch in Europe, or grow, or cut your PPC cost, or maybe help you with Prime Day.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Stefano. I look forward to doing another one in the near future.
Thank you again, Paul.
Well, everyone, that is it for today's episode of Marketplace Masters. I look forward to doing the next one. We're continuing this topic on Europe. We've got another great session coming up. But for now, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.